Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. It's a Stone Cold podcast. They went back to the live showing after WWE's Monday Night Raw. Of course, the Raw took place in Anaheim. Stone Cold Steve Austin made the trip in. This show was a little bit different for the fact that Big Show was actually a part of the main event angle of WWE's Monday Night Raw. With the whole match of Big Show against Braun Strowman. Basically, the Wyatts got involved, and then from there we had Ryback making a run-in, and then Kane making his return, coming back from hell up underneath the ring, and basically the baby faces ran off the Wyatts, and as the show ended, Big Show had to make a run from the ring all the way to the place where they were shooting the live Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, probably some room backstage where this was going to, but the Stone Cold podcast opened up with basically a cold open with Stone Cold Steve Austin sitting in the room by himself, and he had to stretch a little bit waiting for the Big Show to get there. We had Austin talking about Daniel Bryan, wishing him well after his retirement angle that went down last week with him, coming into the ring and saying that he was done. Stone Cold Steve Austin talked about Daniel Bryan on his actual podcast, but with this being on the WWE Network, he refreshed us all on the situation and then dove into telling his feelings about Bret Hart. Bret Hart, of course, one of the guys, if it wasn't for Bret, maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin wouldn't have been as big as a star as he once was. Definitely, Stone Cold Steve Austin possibly had his best match with Bret Hart at the Survivor Series. I think that would be 1995. And then also at WrestleMania, the match that everyone remembers with, I guess that'd be WrestleMania 12 against Bret, when Stone Cold Steve Austin passed out from the sharpshooter with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee. And from there, of course, Bret Hart would leave, WWF to go to WCW, which would open up a huge hole for Stone Cold Steve Austin to become one of the biggest stars in the wrestling business that we've ever seen today. But definitely, Austin wished Bret well with his surgery. I don't think there's been an official Bret Hart release saying that he's going to be 100% healthy, but definitely the news that's been coming out from Bret Hart's camp is that the surgery that went down definitely was good news, and it seems like maybe they've been able to stop the cancer or get rid of the cancer or anything like that. But as Stone Cold Steve Austin was going through these deals, Big Show came onto set and he was putting on a sweatshirt. You can tell that he was frazzled having to come from the ring. Stone Cold Steve Austin granted him one of his Stone Cold beers, which I haven't been able to find yet, but I haven't really gone looking for them. I heard that if I go to Whole Foods, they'll be on the shelves there. But I've been loving that I hope I can do one of these reviews on the Stone Cold Steve Austin beer, which isn't Indian Pale IPA. I don't think I'm gonna like it, but at least I can say that I drank one. It's been something that we've been waiting for since possibly around 2002 when Austin was supposed to get his own beer back in the day. But I think if Austin would have got his own beer back in 2002 before he walked out on the WWE, I think it just would have been a normal beer like a Bud Light or something like that. It wouldn't have been anything like Austin really didn't get into drinking IPAs until the last couple of years and things like that. But Big Show sat down and they talked about, what it was like to be a giant. They talked about Big Show's struggles with him growing up. Definitely the things that I got away from the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast more than anything with Big Show was Big Show has thought a lot about suicide in his life. It is a little bit weird. He talked about it about when he quit playing basketball. And didn't really have a place to go in life, and he was staying in a bad apartment, and he only had $6 in his account. And then he talked about it again when he was talking about him making the jump from WCW to WWF. From the Chris Jericho and Triple H podcast, I think everybody can get this sort of feeling how there was Team WWF and there was Team WCW, and when guys jumped from one company to the other, they didn't always have the best morale. they didn't really fit in with everybody else because the people were coming into place into the company, and people didn't want to lose their spot to somebody that was, a part of the other team. And even though Big Show and Chris Jericho, when they made the jump from WCW to WWE, were big players that really did help the team, the guys in the WWF locker room looked at it as, we've been working so hard to get what we got going. We don't really need a guy jumping from the losing team to the winning team to really keep going. We were doing just fine without you, and until you prove yourself, you're not going to be one of us. And Big Show said that if he just drove off of one of the overpasses on a freeway, no one would really care because nobody really liked the fact that he was working there. But Big Show talked about the fact of what it was like to sort of live with. I apologize, I don't really know the term of what it is. Giantism is what I'm going to call it, but that's sort of a fucked up thing to say. But the Big Show at 3 years old weighed 100 pounds, and then as he got older, I believe he said at 12 or 13 he was 6'3", and moms wouldn't let their kids play flag football or touch football or football with him in the yard because they just thought that he was going to hurt him, and he was just trying to be a normal kid. So he's never really had an average life of things that is going on. What's going on? They talk about the fact that Big Show has been in the WWE for, well, I guess he's been in wrestling for over 20 years, making his debut back in 1996, coming in with the Dungeon of Doom, and, being the guy that was going to end Hulkamania. I actually did learn things. I had always sort of thought that it was Hulk Hogan that really got Big Show into wrestling, and that was true due to Big Show and Hulk Hogan and Danny Bonaducci having a radio show, and Big Show's friend is the guy that gave the karaoke equipment to the Bonaducci show, and Bonaducci told Hulk Hogan that he had this big friend and he would be good if he got into wrestling. Hogan saw him and saw that there was dollar signs. WCW signed him and they put him in the power plant. And they talk about the fact that the guy who trained him was actually Triple H and Terry Taylor. I've seen the Big Show documentary, but although I can admit that it's probably been at least 4 years. I think that thing came out like in 2011. 2012, somewhere in there. But I don't really remember them talking about the fact that Triple H trained him. But Big Show talks about the fact that he always is told by Triple H to sort of kayfabe that deal, basically tell people that it's not true or that it didn't happen. Triple H doesn't want to take credit for anything that's in Big Show's wrestling career. He just happens to be the guy that was in the power plant that he was helping him. But it's sort of funny that you think about when Big Show would make the jump to be a part of the WWE, and that Triple H would already be there. And the big part that they would play, wrestling 99, 2000, 2001, Big Show versus Triple H would be big main event matches, and Triple H was the guy who sort of shaped him. And Big Show talks about the fact that it was Terry Taylor and Triple H telling the Big Show to basically, wait out his contract in WCW. When it ends, go to WWF. Here is definitely, sort of mixed up and not being run right. And this is before Kevin Nash and Scott Hall got there, and Big Show talked about the fact that when they got there, they really shook up the locker room for the good reasons and for the bad reasons. Before the NWO, a lot of the guys were in the back, and they didn't really have high expectations. They were just in the back playing cards, playing chess, playing checkers. And, when Hall and Nash got there, they really shaped the game. And, WCW really took off to be the #1 wrestling company. And then you saw guys actually caring about their promos, caring about their angles, caring about their matches, maybe getting in shape a little bit more. But nobody really wanted to work against Hall and Nash because of the fact that they were so good. They were more comfortable at being heels. They took guys' gimmicks away from them. Where, guys were like, think of like what Big Show came out of with the Dungeon and Doom with the Mexican Gangster and Conan, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan. You've got, Shark, aka Earthquake. You've got Haku, who was wrestling as Ming. Just a whole bunch of, cartoony, gimmicky guys who didn't really hold up when you put them up against a real life guy like Hall and Nash. who was going to kill him. They talk about the fact that the Giant won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship from Hulk Hogan at Halloween Havoc. Him winning the championship in his first match, it was such a big deal. But the Giant talks about the fact that there really was a really big break for him because, the way the finish was done was the fact that, if it was a good match, if people got along with the Giant, Big Show would continue on in WCW, but if not, they would just let him go. He was sort of brought in as just sort of a one-match guy for Hulk Hogan, and if it was assessed, they'll keep going with it, but if not, they would just throw him away. But it was the Yeti who came in, who was supposed to be a snow monster, but was dressed more like a mummy, came running in with a Giant, and they beat up Hogan and Big Show as the Giant just basically walked out with the championship, crowning himself as the champ. But because of the fact there was no pinfall, they put the belt into the World War III 90-man 3-ring battle royal, which was won by... Who won that match? I don't think the Giant won it, and I know Hogan didn't win it. It might have been Savage who won that, but I'm not 100% sure. It just sort of shows you that not anything is really guaranteed in there. But I don't know. This was a fun episode of the podcast. We talked about the fact that the Big Show credits Stone Cold Steve Austin for turning his career around. In the back, you'd always have guys like The Undertaker or Vince McMahon or John Laurinaitis coming to him and basically telling him that he needs to fire up, he needs to learn to be a giant. And, there was a match that was going to be taking place in Germany. It was just basically a house show, and basically they came to Stone Cold Steve Austin and said, they need to have a really good match, and Austin said basically people paid a lot of money to see Austin drink some beer and hit some stunners, and he didn't really want to give the Big Show a lot, and he said this right in front of the Big Show's face. And there was a little bit of trying to calm him down with Vince talking to Austin talking to Vince, and Vince sort of playing peacemaker, going back and forth, and basically, Vince coming up to Big Show and saying that he had a point, and, Big Show really got his feelings hurt from this, that Austin didn't want to sell for him, and, during the match, he grabbed Stone Cold Steve Austin by the tights, and when he threw him back into the ring, he gave him a wedgie, which fired Austin up. Austin came over and he punched Big Show in the face 3 times and told him to get off the trunks, and Big Show snapped and basically picked Austin up and threw him across the ring and then started beating on in the corner, and Austin just said, hey, way to fire up, and that's what sparked something in Big Show, is that, he's a 7-foot guy, he weighs about 400 pounds, at any time in any match, he can change what's going on. If he thinks he's selling too much, he stops selling. If he needs to beat down on somebody, he beats down on somebody, because when, this thing hits you, it's gonna hurt you. But this was fun. This was good. We learned a lot about The Undertaker and Big Show backstage and things like that. It definitely wasn't the best. It definitely wasn't one of the worst, but it definitely was, one of the ones that they cussed a lot more than they did at any other time. But a very good episode, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of these down the road. I know that we were sort of promised a Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with Sting, a Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with The Undertaker. Those are going to be good episodes. We got Brock. That was one of the ones to cross off the list. Maybe bring Vince back sooner than later and try and do another one of those. And that was a really big success the first time. So we'll see what goes on with this Stone Cold Steve Austin and Big Show down the road.